are, as I mentioned, Vikings by birth, who sail up the French coast and the Seine River and quickly plunder the countryside. Their raids end around 911 AD, when the French king Charles the Simple makes a treaty with the Viking chief Rollo. The treaty includes large tracts of land around Rouen, which soon is called Normandy. Now, in exchange for these massive tracts of lands, the Normans, the Vikings, offer to convert to Christianity and promise the king Charles the Simple to protect France. Viking chief Rollo soon becomes the Duke of Normandy and gains considerable wealth from trade and rents collected from the churches and monasteries. Viking immigration then comes in waves and increases the population of the new Norman duchy. The Normans quickly assimilate via intermarriage with the local population, and their acceptance of Christianity does much to spur a revival of the church in Normandy. By the time of Duke Richard I, the early 11th century AD, the Normans have stopped speaking their original Scandinavian language in favor of the vernacular of the French inhabitants of the region. From the end of Duke Richard's reign, which is around 1026 AD, to about 1050 AD, the Normans are torn apart by feuds and political strife within rival factions of the Norman nobility. Duke William I, who of course is also known as William the Conqueror, pacifies the duchy and greatly increases its power in northern France, paving the way for the conquest of England. Duke William is the illegitimate son of Duke Richard, and he is chosen as his successor after Richard dies on a pilgrimage to the Holy Land. For the next decade, various members of the Norman nobility struggle for power. By 1047 AD, William's cousin, Guy of Burgundy, tries to seize control with the help of several Norman lords. William, of course, defeats them with the help of the French king, Henry. Then he manages to enlarge his domain and gain control of Maine to the south and Brittany to the west. Now, marriage by William to Matilda, the princess/daughter of the Count of Flanders, strengthens William's position in the east. By the mid-1060s AD, he has unified Normandy and established his domination in northwestern France. Now, in 1066 AD, Edward the Confessor, the King of England, dies childless. He doesn't have an heir. Now, William is the cousin of Edward, and the Norman Duke claims that Edward had promised to him to make him the king, to make him his heir, when he paid a visit to England in 1061. Edward the Confessor is in fact the last real Anglo-Saxon ruler of England. Edward the Confessor was a very weak king who was unable to assert his authority over the powerful earls of his kingdom. Edward is the son of Ethelred II, Ethelred the Unready, and is a direct descendant of King Alfred the Great. But he was not blessed with Alfred's intelligence or moxie. Edward decides to withdraw from government and concentrate on the building of Westminster Abbey. He turns the simple Benedictine Abbey monastery into a great religious and political center. An English earl known as Harold II of Wessex, Harold Godwinson, puts a fly in William's ointment. And he claims, well, I'm the new king of England. Godwinson is the most powerful lord in all of England. He is elected as king on January 6th, 1066, all King's Day, the Three Kings Day, which sets the stage for the showdown that soon follows. William becomes enraged and secures the blessings of the Pope. William the Conqueror raises an army, gathers a fleet, and prepares to invade England. Godwinson, in anticipation of the Norman invasion, builds fortifications along the English coast. Then Harold II of Wessex, Harold Godwinson, sits and waits. In September, the Vikings, under the Norwegian king Harald Hardada, invades northern England near York. So Godwinson has to march off his army to fight the Viking threat. He manages to defeat the Vikings at Stamford Bridge. But after his victory in the north, his, rather tired army must now march back down to southern England. The Viking invasion has given William the incentive, has given William the Conqueror the incentive to also invade England. So Godwinson, basically his involvement in the north, allows William to cross the Channel. William then proceeds to march his forces to Hastings, where they make camp. The Anglo-Saxons also arrive at Hastings soon afterwards on October 13th. Godwinson's army, is compiled of 7,000 foot soldiers wielding shields, swords, and battle axes. The Normans have an army the same size, but mostly archers and armored knights on horseback. William the Conqueror has the military advantage. Godwinson and the Anglo-Saxons are very weary. They're tired from their 250-mile march to York and back. The Battle of Hastings is in fact a unique military engagement of the medieval period. It's infantry versus heavy cavalry. And this is the most famous battle ever on English soil. Hastings is filled with drama. The battle rages on all day long, with the Anglo-Saxon troops at first holding their ground against the Norman cavalry charges. The Anglo-Saxons used their shields to defend themselves against the horses and knights, against the Norman thrusts, and used their battle axes against the Norman hordes between charges. But the Norman archers are firing volleys of arrows into the Anglo-Saxon ranks. The Normans first charge, pull back, arrows, charge again. Pull back, arrows, charge again. The Norman archers fire volleys of arrows into the Anglo-Saxon ranks time and time again. The infantry soldiers are soon packed together too closely to withstand the Norman cavalry charges, and the Anglo-Saxons become easy targets. The repeated charges of the Norman cavalry, combined with the salvo of arrows, give the Norman invaders the additional mobility and flexibility needed to win. Harold II of Wessex, Harold Godwinson, who for a brief shining moment is the last Anglo-Saxon king of England, is struck down late in the day by an arrow in his eye. His brothers are also killed on the battlefield, and the Anglo-Saxon resistance soon collapses. Now, there's many legends, many folktales, and many songs about Harold Godwinson and the possibility that he survived the battle. This is evidence of his popularity, but there is no doubt, there's no historical doubt, that Godwinson died in the conflict. Now, William the Conqueror then marches his army into London. London, realizing that it has no choice, surrenders peacefully. 10 weeks later, on Christmas Day, 1066, William the Conqueror is crowned the King of England at Westminster Abbey by the Archbishop of Canterbury. His coronation is in fact the climax of the Norman conquests, and the coronation of William the Conqueror changes forever the course of English history. King William loses no time building and garrisoning castles around the country. His castles are in fact a combination of residence and fortress. He allows the Anglo-Saxon nobles to keep some of their lands.